Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Good morning and good evening to all the viewers from wherever you are joining from, and welcome to 118th Madhvacharya for Youth webinar. And today's topic is about Ramayana and the five lessons that we all can sort of imbibe from Ramayana. And before I start, I really want to thank all the viewers who've given us incredible support throughout this journey. During the pandemic, it's been an incredible journey, and all the viewers have supported us immensely. And I really want to thank all the viewers for this support. Each video or each webinar of Madhvacharya Youth is getting about 7,000 views and has been watched in 17 countries. This is something really remarkable for us and quite encouraging. And I request all the viewers for keep encouraging us so that it really boosts our morale and energy to churn out such good content for you all. So before I start, I would invite Sunder Madakshira, who is the speaker of the day.
Namaskara, Santosh. Namaskara.
Hi, Sunder.
Hello. Hello to all of you.
Welcome to
Good morning
118th
and
webinar.
to all our viewers from Madhvacharya for the Youth. I hope all of you are staying safe and absolutely healthy. Nice to see you, Santosh.
Thank you, Sundar. So I would request Sundar to take us through this webinar, and I've been really looking for this webinar. There are five lessons that we all can, and there are many scriptures, like Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, and what is quite unique about is this about these five incredible characters that we have thought about, and I'm looking forward for getting lessons out of these characters. Over to you, Sundar.
Thank you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Acharya Pavanoswakam Acharyani Cha Bharati Devo Narayana Sheshaha Devi Mangala Devata. So welcome to all of you for the very special workshop that we have today, which is on 5 lessons in personality development from Ramayana. The way we thought we should do this is try and see from a context perspective, what is the context? Why was this created? Why were the scriptures created? And why do we need to look at those for lessons for personality development today, right? So the first thing I would like to bring out is the very purpose of creating the scriptures is to imbibe lessons on dharma, to ensure that everybody sticks to a path of righteousness, everybody sees development for themselves, everybody is looking at how they can get better at whatever they're doing and how can they serve the society at large. That's the purpose of our scriptures. It is to help us understand who is God, what is soul, who am I, and what's my purpose in life. So it is with this great objective that our gurus have given us these scriptures, capturing valuable thoughts, stories, and all of that we can use in our daily life. So whenever you think about the story of Ramayana or Mahabharata, it was obviously written with the purpose of giving us some great lessons. And what we need to do today is saying that, okay, Ramayana is a very big text, but what is it that we can learn in a short period that we have today? But something that we can put to use in our lives from tomorrow morning. So this is not really about those deep lessons which take years for us to understand, but something that we can understand quickly and put to use to improve our personality, whether we are a student, whether we are a professional, whether we are staying at home, whether we are a father, mother, or anyone for that matter, right? So with that, let me first, look at this, approaching this in a slightly different way. So today we will see some fantastic lessons, but here are 2 things that I want you to remember. One is just from a background perspective, I want you to know that we're going to be talking about lessons coming from so many people. So if you could go to the next slide, Varun, is that, yeah, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so first thing first, right? We're going to be learning the lessons from Lord Rama himself, who is the hero of Ramayana. Then we will look at lessons that we can learn from Vibhishana, again, another hero who made a great sacrifice to be on the side of the righteousness. Then we will look at lessons from Hanuman. The whole of Ramayana brings out several lessons in which he was looking at the lessons and mindfulness that he was talking about. And then the last two stories are very, very unique. Where we look at lessons that we will learn from two people whom we never thought could teach us something. One is Kaikeyi, who's treated by many people as a vamp in Ramayana, and who completely destroyed the whole story which was developing so well, and Rama was about to be crowned the king. That one act of her has given an unbelievable twist to the whole story itself. And lastly, we look at a lesson from an unbelievable person. Yes, you're right. If you have guessed it, which is what is the personality lesson we can learn from none other than the villain in chief of Ramayana, who is none other than Ravana himself. So, with these ideas, let's jump into our first story. So, the way we have decided to present these lessons is to give you a day to day story, something that happened just now, and then we will come to the Ramayana story. So, all 5 lessons will have a story, and then the lesson, story, and the lesson, and so on. Right? So, Varun, if you could go to the first slide, which showed an aircraft, a large aircraft that is there, right? So, if you go to that, you just saw that picture some time back. It just looked like another aircraft. Yeah, there it is. Look at that aircraft. It just looks like another aircraft. But those of you who are familiar with this picture talks about this aircraft being something which actually was about to crash with all 400 people in the aircraft. Can you believe it? But because of the presence of the mind of the airport, of the people who are controlling the aircraft, and mainly the pilot, the aircraft landed safely, and all the people who were actually on board landed very safely without even a skirmish. So can you believe what happened? The aircraft lost control, the weather was very bad, and the aircraft was swinging like a pendulum. And it just when it was about to land, it almost was getting thrown off the runway, and it would have meant a disastrous end. But the pilot was mindful. All of us have been hearing the word mindfulness, and he had this mindfulness. He knew, he calmed himself down in the face of a very difficult circumstance, used all his expertise to ensure that not only is he safe, but he's also making the right decisions when he's got virtually the lives of 400 people in his arms. And I don't know how many more people would have died if the aircraft had crashed into some dwelling or something like that. So that is the story of this near net accident, but the pilot saved the day. So what is the personality lesson got to do with us? It is the lesson of mindfulness that we can learn from Hanuman. Right? So next slide, Varun, if you could go there. Whenever you look at the character of Hanuman, what comes to our mind mostly is his wisdom. Of course, his strength is something which we are all aware of, but his wisdom in the fate of very difficult circumstances. So let's look at those lessons of mindfulness. So all of us, let us look at some anecdotes. So all of us are aware in Ramayana, Rama is actually working with Sugriva to ensure that they go together, form a united army, and actually look for Sita, right? So we'll get to the story in more detail at a later date. But right now, this is what is happening. And suddenly, in between that situation, they have paused the whole search for 4 months. It's called Chaturmasa in the Hindu calendar. Where 4 months people are not supposed to travel. So they just pause the travel, and because of inclement weather, and then they decide to resume the search after 4 months. Now, after 4 months, Rama is outside Sugriva's kingdom. He's sitting at a far off place in a forest, whereas Sugriva is sitting in his palace. After 4 months, everybody suddenly forgets that they made a promise to Rama to go with him and look for goddess Sita. But the only person who remembers that in the entire monkey army, the Vanara Senya, was actually Hanuman. So what he does, he tells Sugriva that you had made this promise, and if you don't keep up with the promise, I will ensure that you go and help him. So if you don't do that, then I will not spare you. That is his mindfulness. Everyone has forgotten the promise except for Hanuman. What does it tell us? That once you have a purpose in your life, once you've committed to doing something, you should stick to that at all costs. That is the first lesson in personality development. Look at a professional, look at a doctor, look at an engineer, it could be anyone. If he does not keep up to his words, will you call him a professional? Let us say a doctor is committed to looking up a patient at a certain time and he doesn't go and show be there at time. What do we say? Oh my God, such an irresponsible doctor. He's not come to see the patient on time. Similarly, you as an engineer is supposed to deliver a project back to the whole team. And if you don't do it, what does the team say? Oh my God, this guy is so irresponsible. He's not interested. He's not professional. So always remember, probably the first lesson which is there in personality development is actually looking at being mindful, knowing what is happening around you, knowing clearly what your goals are, able to cut out all the clutter and all the confusion and chaos which is there in your mind, and being mindful. That's the first lesson from Ramayana. Of course, this is not the end of Hanuman's mindfulness. It is there throughout. When all the monkeys reach the seashore and they do not know where to go further because they actually don't know where Goddess Sita is, they all decide to just stay put and keep searching and thinking how they can make a breakthrough. But in the process, all of them suddenly forget that they're here for a search because that place is so comfortable. And all of them just forget that they are there on a mission till Hanuman actually comes back and says, no, we are here on a mission. We can't just be sitting here for something to happen to us or something and forgetting where we are there for. So if we can't do anything, let's fast. Let's fast and pray God to give us the wisdom to go ahead. Right? Again, fasting is something which sharpens our mind and helps us look for intricate solutions. So that's Hanuman's mindfulness. So what should we do if we are reaching a dead end? We don't give up. We don't give up on our duties. We don't give up on our commitments. We can take a rest. We can take a pause, but we can't abandon our path towards achieving our goal, no matter how difficult that is. And of course, Hanuman then, as we know the story, he jumps over the ocean, facing so many challenges which nobody else could have actually overcome. So for all of us who are wondering why was Ravana actually sitting in Lanka and why was nobody able to attack him, it was because of a series of obstacles that he had created to ensure that he is always safe. But none of that comes in the way of Hanuman, mainly because of his wisdom. He's applying his mind. He's always on the path of righteousness. So even when he's stopped in by so many people, he says, no, don't stop me. If you're a friend, I thank you for offering me a place to rest while I'm jumping over the ocean. But frankly, I don't need the ocean. I don't need the rest. And if you're an enemy trying to stop me, I know how to tackle you. I'm going to kill you and I'm going to overcome that obstacle. He does that in a series of events, reaches Lanka, and then we know what happens, and then he's back. In all these things, there's one special anecdote which is part of Sundarakanda. So when Hanuman actually comes back, and all the monkeys are waiting to hear whether he has actually spotted Goddess Sita or not. So everybody's looking at Hanuman eagerly to know when he's flying back what has happened. At that time, Hanuman says, Drishtva Sita. That means I have seen Sita. He doesn't say Sita I have seen. Actually, in Sanskrit, as you know, we can toggle words. So he could have said Sita Drishtva. But everybody knows why he has gone to see Goddess Sita. So even when you're wanting to communicate, he shows his mindfulness. He knows that people are anxious. The moment he says Drishtva, or I have seen, immediately it means he has seen Goddess Sita, because that is what he had gone to see her. So this is the first lesson, which is lesson in mindfulness. So let's move to the next story. This is of Lieutenant Colonel Dhan Singh Thapa. For those of you who know the India-China War, which was fought in 1962, he was actually posted in a very advanced post, and there was a big army of his own trying to protect that post. Whereas suddenly he was attacked by the Chinese army. Everybody was fleeing that place, but Thapa just stayed there. The reason he stayed there was he knew the importance of him being there and stopping the enemy from going further. Because if he had done that, or if he had not done that, then the entire army, which was getting protected by him, would get killed. So he fought a very brave battle, ultimately losing his life, but he did not leave that post. Again, a great story of inspiration about how you can stay steadfast to whatever you want to achieve against very difficult circumstances in the weather, in his visibility, with very limited arm. He held the post to the extent that the Chinese army thought that there is an army of people which is actually battling us, but only to realize that it was just one individual who was holding on the post. Of course, as we know, he was awarded the Paramveer Chakra, but it came at the cost of his life. He laid down the life for his nation. But he knew at that point in time what the importance of holding on to the post while others have fled from that place. So this is winning against all the odds. And of course, the Indian army later came back, fought a very brave battle, and could push the Chinese army at that point in time backwards. So the whole war was practically held in the hands of one individual. And Lieutenant Colonel Thapa is one such individual who gives us a very valuable lesson in personality development about winning against all odds. So let's go and see where is the story in Ramayana. It is the story of Vibhishana, right? So Vibhishana is as we know the brother of Ravana, and what he does is that he is always on the path of righteousness. Ravana, the brother Vibhishana, and their brother Kumbhakarna, all of them do penance, they do a tapas. And at the end of it, Ravana seeks Lord Brahma, who appears in front of them and says, "Make me immortal." Brahma says, "No, I can't make you immortal. Nobody is immortal." And Ravana is disappointed, so he tries to ask some other boon so that he can live longer. But and Kumbhakarna, as we know, very famously ends up asking for the ability to sleep and practically loses out on an entire life because all his life he's been only sleeping after that. And finally, he dies in the war. But Vibhishana does something spectacular. He looks at Brahma and says, "Oh Lord Brahma, all these days I have been praying to you so that I can see you. Now that I've seen you, I think that's all I need. I do not want anything from you. Seeing a great God like you and being able to pray to you has been is makes me believe that I have achieved my life's dream. So that is all I wanted. I'm so happy to see you. Please bless me. That's all I need." He does not ask for anything. And look at the boon which Lord Brahma gives him. He tells him, "Vibhishana, may you live forever. May you be a Chiranjeevi, or may you be immortal in that yoga." Again, he just told Ravana that he can't make him immortal, but he makes Vibhishana immortal for the simple reason that he is righteous. If he is immortal and he lives long as a king, the kingdom will benefit because the king is righteous. So that is just the start of Vibhishana's righteousness. Then, as we know, he advises Ravana that he should not have kidnapped Sita Devi, and he asks him to return with due respect. But he does. Again, we know Ravana does not listen to him. Finally, he makes a break from Ravana's camp, and overnight he joins Rama to be on the side of Dharma. So many people think that Vibhishana abandoned his brother, but for great men, these relationships are less important than dharma and adharma. No matter how difficult it was for them, they abandoned the path of adharma and moved to the path of dharma. We have a few parallels which come from Mahabharata as well in the story. But let's stick to the story. Lesson from Vibhishana, which is winning against all odds. There's one very catchy story in the Ramayana itself. Vibhishana is chanting Rama's name. Imagine where he's actually sitting in Lanka when Ravana is the king. He does not give up his path. He does not give up where he should, what he believes is right. And he goes and then keeps chanting the name. And Hanuman is, as we know, he crosses over Lanka, crosses over the ocean, reaches Lanka. He looks at all the parts, and suddenly he sees that in that bad kingdom of Ravana, there is somebody who's chanting Rama's name. And he immediately goes to him, looks at him, and he says, "Oh, who is this man?" And then he realizes he's none other than Vibhishana, who's sitting there and who's reciting Rama's name. So when Vibhishana actually crosses over to come to to come to Rama's camp, everybody advises Rama that don't listen to this man. He is a cunning man. He's come from the enemy's shade. He is bound to create trouble for you. Don't trust him. He's after all Ravana's brother. The only person who stands up for Vibhishana is Hanuman. And he says, you know, I'm not going to, I have seen what Vibhishana can do in Lanka. And I strongly advise Rama that you should take him into our army. He'll be a valuable help. But more importantly, he's someone who's righteous, who's on the path of dharma. So I vouch for him. So many of us wonder, if I work hard, if I do my meditation, if I do my prayers, will somebody even listen to me? Who's there? Nobody's seeing me. Whether we are able to see them or not, the gods and the great gurus of ours are always looking at us. And they have an ability to spot the goodness in us, no matter how, whether somebody else sees it or not. The God will definitely see it. Hanuman will definitely see it. And he will definitely inform Lord about our things that we have done right and things which we have not done right as well. So again, very valuable lesson from Ramayana, which is winning against odds. Vibhishana does what he believes is the right thing to do, no matter what the opposition is. Big lesson for us. If we want to be someone who's a respected personality, it's very important that we do what we think is right. Even if everybody else says it's not the right thing to do, or is discouraging us, or we face obstacles, we should not stop there. We should pursue the path of righteousness as ordained in our scriptures. So this is the second lesson from Ramayana that we all know. Let me come to the next story, which is about Madame Curie. All of us have read her story, a very, very inspiring story about a great individual who had that purity of purpose. Of course, we know Madame Curie came from a very illustrious family. There were 5 Nobel laureates before her, but she is the only woman to have won the Nobel Prize for her research. And even in very difficult circumstances, when there was virtually no one available to test the drugs that she had actually made and the therapy that she had designed to see whether it works or not, there was no one. She actually did use that on herself and ensured that the drug and the method of treatment is actually recognized. What a great sacrifice that is from such a great person. So Madame Curie stands as a great example of someone who's got the purity of purpose in their life. Of course, there have been many Nobel laureates who've done great sacrifices, made great sacrifices, done a lot of hard work with a lot of honesty to ensure that mankind is served. But Madame Curie's story will stand immortal as an ultimate testimony of how many of she finally had to sacrifice her own life, because in testing that the therapy, finally she herself died, at the age of 62, trying to give herself therapy. So ultimately, she had to make a big sacrifice. But even today, the methodology that she's given us has saved millions of lives all over the world, and that was the purity of purpose. Coming to Ramayana, the story in Ramayana, who better than Lord Rama himself when it came to a great lesson in our personality development, which is our purity of purpose. So let me share a few stories. So Varun, if you could go to the next one. Yeah, there it is. There is the story in Ramayana where Rama is about to be crowned the king the next day, and all the arrangements are ready, and there is absolute joy amongst everybody in the kingdom because they really want to see Rama as the next king. And what does he do? Just before he's going to be crowned the king, the queen, one of the queens of Dasharatha, his father, Kaikeyi, then comes and says, "No, it should not be him, but my son, Bharata, who should be crowned the king." And this happens just when there are a few minutes left for the events of the day to start. And instead of that, there is a sudden gloom in that part of the palace because the king is pleading with the queen that no matter what you say, Rama should be the king. And the queen says, "No, it should be my son who should be the king, and Rama should be banished to the forest or a Vanavasa." At that time, Rama enters that place, and this is the crux of the story. And he sees that his father is lying on the floor. His mother is extremely upset, and she is standing in a corner. She's very angry, and everybody else is extremely agitated. All the people there, the sages, the gurus, who had all come to participate, are extremely upset that this is happening. And what does Rama says? The first thing he says is, "Why are you all so sad? Have I caused any problems or any difficulties for you?" Right? So look at his approach. He does not blame others for this, but he takes the accountability onto himself. And then he asks whether he has made some mistake. Whereas we all know Lord Rama is the incarnation of Vishnu, the perfect man who cannot and does not commit has any mistakes and let alone sins. But he takes the blame onto himself. And finally he says, "Have I done something wrong? Has someone else done something wrong?" And finally he comes to the queen and says, "Dear mother, have you done something wrong?" Right? So in other words, when you take accountability for onto yourself, when you look at that situation and say, "How can I change this scenario?" Till that time, you will not be able to solve the problem. Our approach is always the other way around. We say, "Oh, who did this?" Basically telling ourselves and everybody around that I did not do anything, it's you people who did something wrong. Now, how can we solve problems when we don't take accountability for that? Right? So, here is another great example of accountability where all of us, whether it's in our professional life or our personal life, can actually come out and take responsibility for whatever is happening. And that automatically solves a lot of problems for everyone around us because immediately you are taking responsibility to not only recognize the problem, also to solve it because now the steering wheel is in your hand. So, in our lives, we should imbibe the third very, very important lesson, which is purity of purpose. So, let's move to the fourth lesson of, of in our personality development. Oh, look at these birds. So, all of you must be wondering, what are these birds about? So these are the Siberian cranes, which fly all the way from Siberia in around Russia, all the way up to India. Can you believe that these birds, which are so thin, so small, so weightless, can fly all the way from there to here without refueling? Right? Even an aircraft needs to be refueled at frequent intervals to ensure that it has the strength, it has the power to be able to reach India. But these birds, they come all the way from Russia to India without taking a pause. How do they do it? That is the fourth lesson, which is to learn about our ecosystem, to build a strong ecosystem of friends who can help us fly. Now the question is, how do these birds fly? So what these birds do is that they get together as a flock. Hundreds of birds fly together. So what's so special? Birds anyway always fly together. But there's something very special. The birds actually fly in a formation. So what this means is all of them arrange themselves in a certain way in which only the birds which are there at the periphery actually are flapping their wings, and the birds in the middle are just flying and getting lifted because of the air cover which is getting created from the bottom because of the flapping of their wings. So they don't, the ones in the middle do not flap their wings at all. They just bend it like this and hold it like that so that they don't have to flap their wings and they can keep flying for kilometers together. Why do they do this? To conserve energy. They don't have, nobody, all the birds cannot fly all the way, but they fly in a certain formation that these birds, all of them don't have to flap at the same time. The ones in the center are actually resting. In fact, it is said that many of them actually sleep. So can you imagine you're a bird and you're actually sleeping when you're flying? I don't think even the best business class ticket in the best airline can give you that kind of a sleep. These birds are just flying for many kilometers, and when the birds which are in the periphery get tired, with very gradually they come to the center, and the ones at the center actually move to the periphery, and they can still fly. It's an amazing story which has been happening for many centuries. This has been the case. Now, what is the lesson for us from Ramayana? This is the lesson that we learn from Kaikeyi, who is the stepmother of Rama and who is the mother of Bharata. So what does she do? Kaikeyi is very fond of Rama. She's actually a very righteous person, but she has got one person by name Banthara, who is her maid, who has come with her from her parents' place to be with her and to help her with all her chores. But she also, unfortunately, decides to suddenly give advice to Kaikeyi. So when it is announced that Rama is going to be the king and is going to be crowned the king, um, Manthara actually comes and tells Kaikeyi that, do you know that Rama is going to be made the king? Kaikeyi is overjoyed because she loves Rama so much. She immediately takes out a string of pearls from her neck, a garland, and gives it to her and says, here, take this for the lovely news that you've given me. But Manthara has got other evil thoughts. She says, no, if Rama becomes a king, you will not be the Rajamata or the mother of the king. You do not have that special position. You and your son Bharata will have to become servants. Kaikeyi is aghast. He says, you don't know Rama. He loves me as much as he does to his mother. But Manthara does not stop at that. She go in a very short period of time, she corrupts Kaikeyi's mind. So having the right company is very important. In this case, the birds had the right company, and look at how they can fly. But look at Kaikeyi, because of bad company, she's not able to go forward in her life. She, in fact, takes the path of adharma, makes a very unreasonable request to the king. Everybody knows that the best king that the whole universe can ever have is Lord Narayana, who is incarnated as Lord Rama, and he is not going to be the king, and Bharata is going to be made the king. She puts up such unreasonable demand, which actually is not good just for her and for her family, but for the whole kingdom and the world at large. But the king has already given his word, so he cannot go back, and the rest of it is a story. But here is a very important lesson. In our minds, we are always influenced by a lot of people, whether we like it or not. No matter how much we think for ourselves, we are dependent on others in terms of the thinking that they have. and our thinking is getting shaped because of that aspect. We sometimes cannot avoid it. So it's very important that we surround ourselves with positive people. We surrounded ourselves with people who think right, who think positively, who are always motivating themselves and each other, and whom we can draw inspiration from. So we should be with people whom we can consider as role model. We should not be with people at the same time who are demotivating us, who themselves are not driven. Imagine you play cricket near your house, just in front of your house with three people. You play a certain grade of a game. But imagine you're playing for a state team. Immediately, your own standards of a game actually goes up. The same thing goes for our lives. If we are with people who have great ideas, if we are with people who have great ambitions, if we are with people who are willing and work very hard, if we are with people who have determination to achieve things in life, we all get that positive momentum. On the contrary, if you are with people who don't have this and who are demotivated and who are creating a toxic environment around us, our performance, our motivation, our health finally actually just falls badly. So this is the story that we have to learn from KK, which is always have the right company. She lost a great opportunity in her life to emerge as one of the greatest queens if she had only supported the coronation of Rama. And look at what happened in Ramayana. Bharata never became the king, and it was not just at that time, but even later he lost an opportunity to become even the Yuvaraja, and therefore lost a fantastic opportunity to be on the dharmic side of Ramayana. In sharp contrast to Lakshmana, whose mother Saumitra is all supportive when Lakshmana wants to go with Rama even to the forest. And he says, yes, go to the forest, be with your brother. The reason I gave birth to you was that you serve Lord Rama. And today, if you just look at any picture of Lord Rama, who do you see next to him is Lakshmana. Rama and Lakshmana are always seen together, not just in pictures, but in the entire story of Ramayana. There's never a moment when they are separated. And what a great height has Lakshmana attained because the right advice that he got from his mother. So let's move to the last lesson that for the day, which is on personality development, which is another story of Dr. Andy Grove. For those of you who know Andy Grove, you will know him as the chairman and CEO of a great company, Intel. He was not the founder, but someone who started who was there from the inception of the company a few years later and worked with two of the legendary people to make some of the best semiconductors at that point in time. And then when the era of computers came in, Intel was, as we know, is a world leader in that field of microprocessors. Andy Grove took charge at a time when Intel was at a fork. They had to decide which way they go, and he made several decisions which ensured that Intel becomes one of the best microprocessors manufacturer in the world. But this story that I'm going to talk to you about has got something to do with Andy Grove as a person. Andy Grove was a chemical engineer. He was a PhD in chemical engineering, and then he decided to pursue a life in hardware. But he had very strong research instincts. So when he retired as the chairman of Intel and was leading a quiet life, he suddenly one fine day realized that he had a big health issue. He was diagnosed with cancer. But Andy Grove, the fighter that he was, never gave up. He valued his life. And what he did was he actually went, worked with the doctors, and helped them create a methodology to cure him. So, in other words, he put up a methodology that they could use to cure him. He was not a doctor, but his inquisitive mind, his curious mind, actually helped work with the doctors, and together they came up with the methodology and they treated him that way. And he was not fully cured, but it was actually diagnosed that he's going to die in 3 months. But after the treatment started, he lived for 12 more years, lived a good life, and very importantly, left a methodology, a treatment that has helped cure several other people of cancer. So this is what the story of Andy Grove. And what has this got to do with Ramayana? Is the last story of the day on personality development, which is appreciating life, lesson from Ravana. So as we know, as we just spoke, Ravana does the penance, the tapas for several thousands of years to Lord Brahma. And when the Brahma comes and says that, what do you want? He says, I want to be immortal. Now, this is a very important lesson from Ravana, which is really wanting to live long. Now, why is this an important lesson? Why should we learn from a villain? So, the reason Ravana wanted to live might have been a wrong one because he wanted to torment others, he wanted to dominate the world, and he wanted to harass everyone. But that we don't have to live with that purpose. But to to wish that we should live a long life is very, very important. In today's world, it's so common for people to hear about suicides by people, especially unfortunately young people, because of the first challenge that they meet in their life. It is very tragic. Yes, life is always full of ups and downs, but if somebody commits suicide, then life is lost, then everything is lost because nothing can be done after a person is dead. So to aspire for a life, a long life, a healthy life, now it is important that we keep have an attitude that I'm going to live long. I'm going to live long to achieve my dreams. I'm going to live long to serve the society. I'm going to live long, very importantly, to read all our lovely scriptures which our gurus have given us. I'm going to live long so that I serve as a role model to everyone. And I very importantly, I serve not just my family and my friends, but the society at large. So that whatever little I do helps people lead a better life. So Ravana did not unfortunately have these ideals, but one thing he had was he appreciated the value of life. And today's world, especially when we are seeing a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental disorders that are hitting our society, getting into greater trouble with our digital distractions, etc. Very important lesson, therefore, in our personality is to appreciate whatever we get in life and ensure that whatever we have, we appreciate it. Whatever we don't have, we don't sit and regret about it. And thank God for whatever He's given us. It's a very important lesson. It is the last one, but it's very, very important because today, as we see, this kind of inadequacy is, or the feeling of inadequacy is creating all the trouble. Look at our lives today. All of us, or most of us I can say, are have a better education than our ancestors. We got better healthcare than our ancestors. We have more devices that reduce the physical burden on us than our ancestors. But despite all this, can we all claim that we are more happy than our ancestors? The answer, I think, is no. Most of us will agree that despite having everything in our life, our ancestors led a better quality of life, better relationship. They were healthy, they lived long. Why is that happening? It's largely to do with the fact that we do not appreciate what we have. We do not have that sense of happiness, gratitude, and compassion. On the contrary, we are always trying to achieve more at the cost of something, at the cost of someone else. So I think it's very important that when we're putting these life lessons in space, we appreciate life. Yes, everything will not be perfect. As Vijay Dasa very, very beautifully says, Kai Meriddu Krishnarpana. That means anything that is not under your control is Krishnarpana. Just offer it to God. Say, I have nothing to do with it because it's not under my control. But whatever I have, Palak Bandittu Panchamrita. That means whatever I have is like fire, is Panchamrita. Panchamrita, as we know, is a lovely sweet which is made out of fruits and honey and several other things. So if we accept whatever we have, saying this is what God has given us, whereas so many other people in the world don't even have that, and God has been kind to give us this, I think our life will improve. Now, this is not to say that we should not aspire for big things. We should, but we should always have that sense of gratitude. So, in these lessons, so just to summarize very quickly the five lessons that are there, um, which is the lesson from Hanuman. So, Varun, if you go to the last slide, which is on mindfulness. How do we look at being mindful? How do we ensure that we are aware, we are thinking about whatever we do? Ask yourself this question. Always be clear on just one thing. What am I supposed to do? What is dharma? And I go, in that direction. Lessons from Vibhishana: winning against all odds. Strive for what you believe is right. We are always worried about what someone else thinks about us, whereas we know all the time, most of the time, at least, what is right for us. So we should pursue that. Lesson from Rama, which is on purity of purpose. Look at Rama's clarity and accountability. Immense. Lessons from Kaikeyi, which is choosing the right company and setting us ourselves up for success. If Kaikeyi set herself, unfortunately, for failure, but if we can set us up as for success, we'll be like those Siberian birds, which fly 3,000 kilometers because they have the right company. And last but not the least, lesson from Ravana, which is appreciating life, living a healthy and a purposeful life, so that we live a great life ourselves and make hundreds and thousands of lives all around us equally great and maybe even greater. So, with those words, I'd like to conclude the five lessons from Ramayana. Ramayana is a great scripture. It has been created to give us a lot of lessons, but we have limitations in terms of time that we can actually imbibe those lessons. But my honest request to all our attendees is, look at this, keep this last slide in your mind, and start implementing it in small steps. All of us cannot be Hanuman, all of us cannot be Rama, but if we learn these lessons and implement it in our lives, we are going to be better professionals, better people in the society, a better parent, a better child, and in general, a great asset to the society. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunder, for taking us through these five strong characters and their lessons. Definitely, Ravana was quite a surprise for all of us. Being a negative character and something to learn from him is quite outstanding. Uh, yeah, and thanks, Sundar. And moving forward, Varun, can you just go to the next slide? Yeah. So the way forward. So before we go to this slide, so it's an appeal to all the audience. If you have any Q&A, you can write down in the description column, and we will take these questions in this session or probably uh, in the upcoming sessions. So the way forward to our Madhvacharya platform is we will look at three structures. Basically, the online live webinars that we are doing, which will be a 1 hour session. To that would be Vedic streams, which will be a 10 to 12 minute video. And then there'll be a short videos, which will be 3 to 5 minutes video. So we'll probably based on the topics, we would divide these topics and we'll see where it fits into these formats. And depending on the formats, we would churn out the content. Right. And upcoming topics are Dvaita series, which will be discussion and understanding of Madhvacharya's philosophical tenets. Bhagavad Gita series, which will be a series on Bhagavad Gita. Upanishad series, which will be unraveling the lessons from Upanishads, and Mahabharata series, which will be the replay, the epic in today's contest, and meditation series. Meditation series is something which we did before the pandemic. We really want to bring back that, do a few minutes of videos, so that would be really helpful for all of the viewers. Moving on to the next slide. So it will be completely on Bhagavad Gita. So the global appeal of Bhagavad Gita. So all the yogas, which is Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhagavad Gita from the eyes of Raghavendra Swami, uniqueness of from the Dvaita point of view, and there are a lot of questions that we keep getting, which is, did Bhagavad Gita really happen? So we want to really pick up all these questions and have a Bhagavad Gita series on this and try and answer to these questions. And moving on would be the perfect lessons. More to the next. Huh. So the perfect lesson. So we have identified certain perfect things, which would be the perfect prayer, which is Gayatri Mantra, the perfect teacher, Madhvacharya, perfect text, which is Mahabharata, the perfect song, Bhagavad Gita, and the perfect beauty of names of Vishnu, which is Vishnu Sahasranama, and other Nachiketa's brilliant questions. So we've identified these topics and created as a perfect series of the perfect lessons, and we would be connecting, having a session on these topics. And way forward, which is the biography series. So biography series is all about, we would be talking about all the major saints of Madhva philosophy, which is Madhvacharya, Jayatirtha, Vyasaraya, Sripadarajaru, Bhagavatma Tirtharu. So all the major uh, Madhva saints, and we would be having a biography series on them. And followed by is the ritual series. The ritual series are Sandhya Vandana, Ekadashi Vrata, significance of festivals. So we'll be trying to include in the rituals series. And the greatness of India. So what did India contribute in terms of its architecture, metallurgy, mathematics, Ayurveda, and a lot of other things. And you can, all the viewers can also probably suggest other topics to include in this topic. We would begin picking up those things and having a session on greatness of Bharat. And moving on is a request to all our participants. And if you have any questions, if you want to be a participant, please do drop in your suggestions. Or if you want to be a volunteer, you can drop in your comments to Madhvacharya numerical 4 youth at gmail.com. And you can also follow us on other social channels, which are Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, which is the Madhvacharya for Youth. This is our handle. You can drop in your comments, like, share. Everything can be done in these four platforms. And then the next workshop will be on the 14th of March, which will be on Bhagavad Gita, a playful for a playbook for professional excellence. So this will be quite uh, exciting for most of the audience who are working professionals. So this will be definitely something which I'll be looking out for. So what are the key takeouts from Bhagavad Gita will be discussed in this workshop, which will be happening on Sunday between 3:30 to 4:30 on March 14th.
Yeah, thanks,
Sundar, so
Santosh.
yeah.
Yeah, just one, two quick questions have come up. So, any good books on stories from Upanishads for kids? Yes, yes, Mr. Sripati, it is there. There are two books written by Professor K.T. Pandurangi. I think the only challenge is you will have to read it and tell the kids. Kids cannot pick up the story by themselves because it has got a few philosophical imports which they will not be able to read all by themselves. But it's written in very simple style. Professor K.T. Pandurangi's The Principal Upanishads. So 10 Upanishads, Tashopanishads as they are called. He has written a very detailed yet very simple translation of that in English, very importantly. The other question is from Sriranga, who says that would all the upcoming short videos like you mentioned, we might be aired in YouTube? Yes, we're going to be uploading on YouTube. We're also developing a website which should come up. But these short videos will start coming to you. You will receive a mail from us every time something new gets uploaded. You'll start getting it. So we should start productionizing it in the next 15 days. We have already discussed finalized what are all the topics. I think Santosh has already showed it to you. If you have any other suggestions apart from what we have already discussed, which is on Gita and stories and so on. If there's anything, please do not hesitate to let us know. We will try our best to attend and respond to that. One last thing from me, Santosh, with your permission, is that we have seen a lot of interest coming from our audience in terms of what they want to know more, especially from our youngsters who probably do not find time to ask the questions here. but they write to us later. So it's been an absolute pleasure responding to them on email, as well as some of them even call us and find out. So please keep those questions coming, and your suggestions on how we can get better. Thank you, Santosh.
Thanks, Sundar. So, as Sundar mentioned, we really request you to keep putting in your questions. Don't hesitate. Please keep adding your questions. Even after this workshop, we will respond you to directly with your all the questions. So, yeah. So, with that, Sundar, thanks for your time, uh, and thank you.
Thanks. Namaskar.
Thank you.